Hello, listeners, and welcome to the second season of the Adapt podcast, the podcast about how society adapts to the world's growing challenges. My name is Harish Murugesan, and I am a present freshman at The Ohio State University with a major in computer science and engineering. Today, I have the honor to be joined by Mr. Marc Tuinier, a highly successful entrepreneur in the area of Netherlands. Mr. Tuinier is a master's graduate from the University of Groningen in strategic management innovation. Mr. Tuinier was an international business representative in the position as an accountant manager at Red Bull. Ever since his position at Red Bull, Mr. Tuinier is now the CEO of Nuwa Innovations. Nuwa is a company looking to innovate the basic ideas of a normal pen. Thank you again for joining me today.
And of course, I had to put on the unicorn costume because it's Halloween, and we have the ambition of becoming a unicorn someday. But I'm really happy to be on the podcast with you.
Yeah, thank you again for joining me. And I definitely connect with your ideas of becoming a unicorn. I think it's a dream for everyone, right?
You got to put your star out somewhere. So
yeah, I mean, the Nuwa pen might be like a groundbreaking innovation, but I think unicorn is always going to be the goal for the future.
Just put it on like that, and then
that works too. Yeah. So again, back to I think jokes aside, back to Nuwa pen. The first question I usually like to ask a lot of my guests is kind of what were some of the steps you took to get to where you are today, and essentially what was kind of your story growing up and how it led you to Nuwa pen.
I was born as in the family of farmers. So my dad was a farmer, and my brothers were farmers. My sister ended up going into agriculture as well. And I was born in France, and we moved to Texas in the United States when I was about 5 or 6. And I think I just grew up in the midst of a circle of people trying to build out constantly. It's a dairy farm, but I mean, it's kind of like a startup as well. You start with 1 cow, and then all of a sudden you have a couple thousand.
It's a business in itself, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I saw that happening in the adventurous spirit of my family, and I think that kind of stayed close to me. So once I was old enough to understand that you could also make some of your own pennies, I felt kind of constrained with allowance. I got like $1 or $2 of allowance every month, and something like this. And I was like, if I can sell some things, I can double that in the same week. So from the age of 10 or 11, I started selling custom CDs with music that people requested for $1 a song, and getting them off of iTunes and then burning them and giving them to people. And I think that kind of stayed with me. Like all of a sudden I was able at a very young age to earn my own money, and then later you become a little bit older and you kind of like, okay, well, what is something that I want to do for the rest of my life? And then through a few startups that I had, I eventually came to working with consumer electronics, and especially technology that allows you to stay a little bit more true to yourself. And I think the pen was a device that was in my head for a long time, and I love writing and music then, and my note taking. But I just really wished I could have a tool that remembered what I wrote, and I didn't always want to have to take a picture with my phone, but the pen would take pictures, and that's how we eventually got to Nuwa pen. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. This is, I'm guessing, like one of the models going out for production.
Yeah, and a bit of blur, but you can see right now that it's on, and it has 3 little cameras in the tip of it, with a ballpoint pen on the end as well. So anything I write creates a digital copy of it and puts it straight on.
Okay. So just to inform the viewers more, what essentially is the Nuwa pen, and what are some of the basic things that it can do?
Nuwa pen is it's a traditional ballpoint pen, and we just strap 3 cameras around it so that it can create a digital copy of anything that you write on any paper. And I think the use case that I myself and people who are waiting in line to get one is pretty much like I would just be able to search my notes. So like yesterday or 2 days ago, I had an instance where I was in a meeting, and it was with a man. His name is Jacob, and I've had meetings with him before. I knew there was something about his kids, but I wanted to ask like a question about his kids. And I was like, oh, man, what were their names? So I went to the app and I typed in kids because I knew I had written down something about his kids, and then boom, there was my note. And I could just ask like, hey, how is it with X and Y? And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it made I mean, it's like Google, but for your notes. And something like this has existed, but usually you'd have to have some digital interface like OneNote or Evernote or Notion even, or Apple Notes, doesn't matter, anything with note in it, Notability. And you have to just use either a keyboard or a digital screen. And in our
Yeah.
case, we were like, okay, but can we just still provide those benefits of searchability and indexability, but really keep the writing experience true to what it's always meant to be, which is something, a physical reaction on something else, which in this case is ink on paper.
Yeah, totally. And there's so many note-taking devices. I think that's what makes an innovation like Nuwa stand out from most of the others, right? Being able to go back and, figure out through your searching of like specific topics and ideas that you would want to look into more. I think Nuwa perfectly does that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's why I like to use it. The digital copy of it isn't necessarily even like it's cool, it's neat, and I love having it like that. And that's what makes the effect magical of typing in the kids and then seeing the digital copy of it. But yeah, the indexability is definitely a major highlight of the product.
Yeah, I think I could already start imagining like so many uses personally as, a student who takes notes during like lectures and recitations. And I find how useful it could be to just search up a term I'm having difficulty, relearning. So I definitely think Nuwa is a great idea and innovation that way. Backtracking to kind of your story personally, it reminded me a lot of a book I read a few years ago. It reminded me of this autobiography on Warren Buffett. And during his story, he told the viewers that when he grew up, he used to sell a lot of often random items like bottle caps or, arcade machines. And he grew from selling those small things just to get like that basic allowance for his daily life to grow to own, multiple $1 million companies and, the place he's at today. And that sort of idea, I think, was very similar in, something you said, as, you went from just selling discs and CDs, just basic items to, grow to like a significant entrepreneurial innovation company, right? With something as big as Nuwa in the field of consumer electronics. So do you think personally that this sort of, a background or starting place in business is what leads, I think, the best leaders in this field and creates them?
I'm sure it comes in different forms and phases. Not everyone who goes into consumer electronics grew up on a farm. The limitations that I kind of wanted to break was, can I somehow have a little bit more cash? And how is that possible? Like, my parents wouldn't give me more, even if I would do more chores or whatever. So I guess I just had to find a way to do that myself. And in the beginning, it was just soil during a drought in Texas, and I was like 8 or 9. And then later it became recycled cat houses, and it was maybe $20 that I earned off of it. It was like $5 a box, but that $20 was 20 weeks of allowance. So I was like, I can finally buy my Nintendo DS game now.
Yeah, I remember playing that a lot when I was small.
It was awesome. And now you read about, of course, you read how other people have done it, and I think it also helps, for example, in Silicon Valley or being in a place that's densely populated with business students, also helps to drive your any capitalistic intuition that you might have. Just that it does help to have a little bit of a capitalist or entrepreneurial background in that regard. It's like, to me, it's like, it's fun to build something, but if you can't sell it, then where's the real innovation? That's my heuristic, at least. So the selling part is just as important as the building part.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's sort of, I think, when there's a want, there's a will, right? Or, when there's an audience, like, it's important to cater to that audience better than rather than selling, an innovation that's not really helping that many. So I definitely agree with that. And I think that's a common trend in most entrepreneurs as well. So going back to the Nuwa pen, um, what are some of the benefits that, other than, the note taking and like the physical abilities, what are some other benefits that I think Nuwa pen might have over, just a normal pen?
It really does boil down to the digital applications, the digital integration that you could have with a pen, that just a traditional pen. Like if we were to grab our technology and strap it around any other writing utensil, it would practically have the same effect, where the pen is still a pen. So it's pretty useless without the software. And the software enables you to search and share and find whatever you're looking for. It's just and it's a really growing space. Just before our call here, I was reading a paper that Google had published yesterday, a group of 4 researchers, about how they had done research on reconstructing strokes from images. So they had taken pictures of handwriting and they tried to reconstruct the individual strokes of that handwriting, something very relevant in the digital writing space, also because a lot of machine learning algorithms are now not just looking at what is this letter in the context of the word, but what can I analyze the stroke to help me understand the letter in the first place. Once you get into this field, you start narrowing in on these little niches. I still don't know which one is correct. But it's cool to see that there's so much excitement still in this industry, with papers being released as of yesterday by some of the biggest tech companies. And still, like in the introduction, it says like handwriting is still a huge part of daily life. And it's still a huge challenge to get it indexed right and searched right for people to use it more effectively.
Yeah, totally. And so on that Google article, actually, you said that it was going to utilize like machine learning and stuff, and more AI and other innovations based off of that, right? Do you find that there would be a kind of a space in Nuwa pen for artificial intelligence or machine learning to be implemented into the future, or is it simply a technology that doesn't need artificial intelligence as much?
I'm sure it'll make it a lot better. So we don't use machine learning everywhere, but we use machine learning mainly in the handwriting transcription. So being able to convert what you write to typed text, like keyboard text. But let's say like things that we're working on as well is like, you want to flip between different journals, right? Sure, you can do that with some coded paper, which is what traditional solutions do. Or if you have a digital solution like the iPad, you might like literally open a new journal. But how would you do that in a Nuwa pen if it doesn't have the coded paper? Well, then something you could do is to just like do a little bit of a wand effect for like math. So you write math in the air and then it gives you a blink and it tells you, oh, you're in your math journal now, go ahead and start writing. Like those are applications that we're researching to transform gestures into practical output as well. So that's where you see possible applications for machine learning as well.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, going off of machine learning, actually, another innovation I was curious about how it could be implemented in the future is augmented reality. And I bring this up because in recent times, we've seen a lot of different headset hardwares and software has come about in augmented reality. In fact, in a previous season, I interviewed the CEO of X Vision headset, and essentially it was a headset that would assist during spine surgery. And so this sort of implementations of augmented reality really got me curious as to if Nuwa Pen would be implemented into AR in the future.
Yeah, it's actually a separate project we're running internally to explore what's possible there. And the world that we see is, yeah, your handwriting comes to life in a more real format. So we use a form of augmented notes in our app, which basically reads out rich elements like to-dos, calendar invites, and so much more. Like when you have all the integrations, it can be tasks that you can put into different project management systems, or more smart suggestions as to what you can get out of your email or music, or like these are all separate things that we're developing. But what happens if you can put that into a 3D space instead of just on your phone? Then all of a sudden that phone number pops out and you can tap it in midair, for example, or it recognizes the contact with your history, and then you can read about the contact or visit their LinkedIn profile or whatever it is, just at a tap of the air button or something like this.
The augmented space.
Yeah. Or my favorite is like when you're studying, it's augmented space button. When you're studying and you write some complex formulas or some literature or words that you might not be able to retain as well, like you mentioned earlier, then it would automatically suggest some YouTube videos or Wikipedia articles. And instead of it getting a notification here every time you need it, it becomes part of the way that you work. Like I really just see it like as a Jarvis system. That you write something and it's like, oh, look, you want to look at this YouTube video, and click play. And then at the same time, you're writing notes while the YouTube video is playing without having to pull open a laptop or all this kind of stuff, because everything is already in front of you.
Yeah. I think kind of like the ability to create a workspace, just simply digitally, just based off of the entire augmented space, I think is definitely a reality. And I could see how Nuwa Pen could be, very usefully implemented actually in that sort of space. And it even gets me curious to the fact as, 10 years ago, when I was a kid, I would look at, Iron Man, and you mentioned like the Jarvis systems earlier, and it almost seems crazy that these fantastical elements we grew up watching are, soon possible. And I think that just shows how much innovations are just truly helping the world adapt again. And which makes me go to, I think, another question, curiosity of mine, which is, personally, do you feel that many media, whether it be movies, books, podcasts, even, influence kind of the workspace or the economy of just business in general with their fantastical elements? Do you think that, something like Jarvis eventually influenced something like augmented reality? Do you think that there was a connection between those?
Yes, I say so, because art, like those Jarvis systems in movies, and Minority Report, an older one with Tom Cruise, which kind of started that little, ooh, what can we do with this kind of technology? It's an art form that produces practical concepts. So as futuristic as it looks, there's always going to be one person in the audience that's going to be like, but wait a minute. If we do that, then we might be able to do this. And then they might be able to see some kind of business opportunity. And either they have the money themselves to start investing, or they know to convince someone else to start participating. And all of a sudden you have a firm developing this kind of stuff, making it come to life. I was writing about this recently as well, just trying to organize my thinking about this. I think the speed of this innovation is making it very hard for science fiction to come up with more creative futures. Like, I think all possible realistic futures have been in some way, form, or shape considered. Whether it's aliens coming in, whether we become a multiplanetary species, we traverse civilizations, or we hop worlds in which we live in augmented reality. It's making it harder and harder for culture, art forms of self-expression like books and science fiction to come up with new worlds that we haven't imagined yet.
I totally agree with that. In fact, I kind of see a continuing pattern in like we said, the many art forms that in recent times it's gotten to the point of kind of less innovative stories and ideas, but they try to kind of implement the ideas more in a more natural way. And I think more media nowadays is kind of depicting it in a more natural and like humanistic way rather than having outbound, just crazy out of the box ideas.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely a connection I made in your answer. And aside from ideas, back to the Nuwa pen. Um, in a previous episode, I spoke to the principal of one of the most highly innovative schools in America. And I learned a lot from that interview, and it brought me up the question as to if in recent times schools have been adapting to more newer and newer technologies. And do you think there would be a space for Nuwa Pen in the future to become kind of a daily use school item?
I hope so. I really hope so. It's like I would not have been able to pass any of my education without a pen and paper. It's just, as much as I was a proponent of introducing technology in the class, it helps me weirdly concentrate. Like if you get to do it on a tablet, all of a sudden it's a lot more fun. It's just true. Like watch a YouTube video about a certain subject or click around in 3D models. It just becomes a relatively dull exercise. It becomes a little bit more interesting. But when it comes to having to pass a test or an exam, all of a sudden the cognitive benefits of writing something with a pen on a paper need to be used for myself. At least that was my most effective way of learning. So being able to bring that back into schools, something you also notice in the Netherlands is that they are actually banning cell phones outside of in the classroom. So they always have to stay outside. It's forcing people back to using pen and paper. And I hope our tool the Nuwa Pen will be able to be used within schools so that they can still have the digital benefits of having everything converted into typed text or having a digital copy stored somewhere, but that they can still let the student just write and have that concentration or benefit. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, so I think as time has gone on, I've realized in my younger years that I was much more attentive to a YouTube video or, the many Khan Academy videos I grew up learning off of. And I think the interactive space is definitely something that I think is more beneficial for kids, I think. And I definitely know that Nuwa Pen will be a great utilization of that. Going back to the form factor of a pen. Now, personally, in my house, and I think many other houses I've seen across the US, whether it be friends or family, there's often just a jar of just full of pens. It's probably the most common household item. Just a lot of even dyeing pens or inkless pens is all just, bunched together in that one cup. And that got me thinking as to, do you think Nuwa Pen will become, a replacement for all of these pens instead of having, a bunch of useless pens, having one really good pen? Do you think this sort of change would create an environmental benefit in some way and, improve kind of cleanliness habits of people?
I hadn't thought about it that way yet. Like I've done research on the number of pens sold or produced a year, and I believe that Bic is the top producer with their ballpoint pen. It's in the billions. billions of pens produced every single year, and most of them end up in a landfill. Though I have the ambition to replace every pen, I didn't think of the environmental reduction in that sense yet. So that jump started that right now. Thank you so much.
Okay, I got you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy to provide that idea. I just thought about it from, I think, as like a potential buyer myself. I thought about it in the sense that I would much rather be willing to pay just $2,000 for just one really good pen than, over the time spend a lot of money on just random pens that, eventually wouldn't work and low quality. I feel like one pen would just be enough. It would just, provide a lot of environmental benefits. So that's kind of the way I looked at that.
Do you pay $2,000 for a pen? Because I'd definitely sell it right now. You can just have this one.
No, I don't have to. Sadly, I'm a college student. I don't have $2,000 on me, but I can see the argument towards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Our pen's a bit cheaper, so
yeah, definitely. That was just a example, just to throw out.
yeah.
But yeah, I see the argument for having just one good item over, a bunch of cheap, like low quality items.
Yeah.
So going back to the physical shape and size of the pen, I think at first glance it may look very odd to a lot of buyers, as it's like a straight pen and then you have that little bulge on the bottom. Yeah, there we go. If the viewers can see that. So do you have any complaints, or did you find this physical structure a little odd at first?
Well, people think that it's a lot thicker than when they actually have it in their hand like this. Like it's as long as an Apple pencil. I think even a little bit shorter. About 11 millimeters in diameter. So about the width of a skinnier than your finger. So it's very nice to hold. And then the bulb here is made so that the cameras it protrudes so that the cameras can see, basically. And what it does for the user ergonomically is that it's a resting place for your fingers. So you won't find yourself slipping down the barrel of the pen while you're writing, which happens, for example, with big pens. Like your palms get sweaty after an exam, 3-4 hours, yeah, they slide. But with this one, you can just write with no problem. You just rest your fingers on top of the bulb.
Yeah, totally. Did you think, was it that like ergonomic idea part of the R&D process for the physical structure?
Yeah, absolutely. Like if it were up to me, it would just be slim. But then we kind of had the industrial design engineer has a job as well to make the product ergonomical and nice for the user. And like, hey, bulb. Plus, it'll leave the space for the cameras. And I was like, no.
Yeah. It's you kind of had to fit it all in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Going back to kind of the perception of, buyers and users, what do you think personally was either the best praise you've heard a lot about users using the pen, or kind of, the biggest fault of the pen? What were kind of those two ideas that you learned from users?
Yeah. So we're in kind of like a pre-beta. I think they call it alpha. Is that true? Is it alpha before beta? Yeah, I think so. In software development?
I believe so.
Alpha, beta, and gold release or something like this. So, yeah, something like manufacturing release and then gold release. But in the initial trials and testing that we're doing now, I think what people hope will continue to get better, which it will, is the conversion to a digital copy. It's you can read it, you can read your own handwriting. Most people are pretty happy about it. Sometimes it just doesn't get it right, and then that's a bit of a bummer. As long as the text transcription is something that you can edit and work on, it's usually fine. But in most cases, it does it quite well. And then the thing that people are most excited about is the text transcription, like just being able to have that piece of text and send it somewhere or copy it and put it straight into your Mac, whatever it may be. And on top of that, the search feature. So like I mentioned earlier, it's just being able to search for a name and seeing it pop up. pretty exciting.
Yeah. As a user, I see, the appeal for just pulling up the notes and all that stuff. So sadly, as we're coming to the closing of this episode, often during the closing times of an episode, I like to ask a similar question to all my guests, and that being, what, in your opinion, is the next frontier of innovation in general? As I believe, previously a lot of guests have said, I think a lot of different fields and ideas, but just in general, what do you feel like is the next frontier of innovation past, I think, our current frontier of, things like artificial intelligence and augmented reality?
Yeah, it's merging that with neurotechnology. I think you see a large upswing in wearable tech, like health tech, and I personally am a Whoop user. I've looked at many different solutions, but I thought that one would be pretty cool, and I'm very happy with it. I have convinced maybe one too many people to also get one now. But just the way that it's able to give you insights to improve your performance, if you're interested in it. Not everybody wants to be a performant human. It might give you the idea that you're just becoming an efficiency machine instead of a human. I kind of like it. I enjoy it, so I feel it makes me more human. That's why I do it that way. But imagine what happens once you have that type of access for people like just you and me about what happens in your brain. And there's already a product out there, and I wish I could remember the name, but it's a band that you put around your brain and it helps you understand just brain activity while you are busy. And it gives you real-time feedback in an app to be able to see when you're very intensely focused and when you're not. And if you're able to optimize, again, takes the swing a bit about being human, your work or your life for better and more healthy, more harmonious brain activity compared to the rest of your life. I think it'll just might free you in a weird way if you're open to it. Again, not everybody is, but I love that idea. And then in the future, it's just it's biotech. So how can we amplify that which we already can do without losing that which what makes us rush?
Yeah. I find that idea actually very interesting because I think you could provide a lot of detrimental information for, users that it's essentially enhancing the human body, just neurally. But that sort of enhancements, I think, could, I feel like, accelerate the innovation process in the future after that too. If users were able to, think more efficiently and work more efficiently, I definitely think that innovations will definitely grow. And yeah, it will definitely, help the world adapt as well, going back to the main topic of our podcast. So,
yeah, cool. That's what you're trying to achieve as well with your podcast, is to find technologies and ambitions that help people adapt?
Adapt the world to, its growing challenges, whether it be, the education issues or global warming or, some of the ethical arguments for artificial intelligence, just whatever issues, just really helping the world with another innovation that, helps it adapt to all this growing chaos. So that's kind of been the main idea of the podcast. So
that's cool. Yeah, on a macro level for us, that's like a cognitive overwhelm. Just constant stimuli around you and just bringing it back to pen and paper to help you concentrate. Also, there's an eroding human connection. Like when people speak to each other in meetings, like account managers or salespeople, there's usually laptops in between. Well, what happens if you take those literal barriers out from between the two of you and you're just sitting there with a pen and paper? You're literally taking out the barriers of a conversation, as well as just the heritage of writing. We've done it for thousands of years, and it's bound to leave, and we're here to save the day. So buy Nuwa pen today. That was full fun.
Definitely. I think for all the viewers at home, please look into Nuwa Pen, and I will definitely be looking into it. Yeah, definitely.
You should get one if you're a smart person. Only smart people should get a smartphone.
Or I mean, if you want to become a smart person, maybe you can utilize Nuwa Pen that way.
You see what I'm getting at. So who doesn't want to be smart?
Yeah. It's appealing characteristic. So sadly we are running out of time. So for all of my viewers at home, thank you again to Mr. Marc Tuinier for joining us today and telling us all about Nuwa Pen. So thank you again, and I hope you all enjoyed this season 2 episode of the Adapt Podcast.